Welcome to this episode of Read, Burn, Hoard. This is a series I've been running on my channel for the last several years, and it's safe to say it's one of my most popular features, with the added benefit of also being my favorite to produce. Originally inspired by Books with Emily Fox's 1 Week, 1 Shelf challenge, this is where I'm going through my entire collection of unread books and evaluating each one carefully and seriously considering whether or not I'm actually going to read each book that I evaluate. So this is episode 4 of Era 2, and y'all, I am tired of messing around. In my last episode, I got rid of over 30 books from 4 shelves, and I'm hoping to continue on that brutal trend today because I got some goals. According to my little tracker, when I first began this second era of Read, Burn, Hoard, I had 1,170 unread books in my collection. Several months later, with all the books that I've purchased and read, the starting number for this video is 1,169 books. It's lower, so I'm happy, but we can do better, I think. Truthfully, I think it's taken me this long just to get into the right mindset of what I'm trying to do with my reading life. I'm no longer about hanging on to books that I don't think I'll ever read. My goal is to be under 1,000 unread books by the end of 2025. And I think I can do it, especially with how ruthless I'm willing to be when it comes to the decluttering aspect of this. So traditionally with Read, Burn, Hoard, I would pick a book from the shelves that I was evaluating to read, but I am in an era of trying to tie up loose ends, not have so many things going, and so I've shifted a little bit away from that, at least for this season of book life. So right here I have an accumulation of really high priority titles that I'm coming across as I'm evaluating the shelves. We will continue adding to this today, and in the meantime I have a shelf containing all of the high priority reads that I want to get to in 2025 per my goals. And in today's video I'm going to be sharing my experience as I go along with a book from that shelf, which so happens to be Alien Clay by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I'm a huge Tchaikovsky fan. I have read so many things by him that have absolutely blown my mind, and that even the stuff that's not quite as good is still like a 4-star read. So I'm expecting great things from this one, especially since a lot of people have mentioned that they preferred this book over Service Model, which was also released by him last year. Like, I cannot keep up. But here's the thing. So I have this, and then I also have this. This is a problem. So this is the signed broken binding edition with the sprayed edges, and I forgot this thing had sprayed edges, but that's why I went with this one initially. But I prefer the one with the yellow. First world problems. So now I have 2, and by the end of this video I need to make a decision on which one I'm keeping and which one I'm letting go. They're both signed. I paid about the same for both of them, and I don't need 2 copies unless this ends up being my very favorite book by this author. But now, if the yellow one had sprayed edges, no contest. But come on, can't let that go. Not to mention, the broken binding edition has a really pretty naked hardcover. So I'll check in on that, but for now, let's look at the shelves. Okay, quick pan to show you what we're working with. These 4 bookcases plus the books on top are all unread books. And you go over here, these shelves here, all unread books. And then you pan over to my read section, and that second to top shelf up there is the end of the alphabet, all unread books. The ultimate goal is to get all of these out of this section. It's about 80 books or so. So if I hit my goal of being under 1,000 unread books by reading and getting rid of most of them, then I should be just fine. But ooh, you'll notice last video, I had a whole bunch of books that had pulled out from a project that were just lining along here. I have managed to fit in most of those from the massive unhaul that we did on last time's shelf. And all that's remaining are these 2 bottom shelves here. So perhaps my main goal by the end of this particular video is to have gotten rid of enough books to fit all these in. Although I'm not going to let stuff go that I think I'll read just for the sake of, but it would be really cool if these would be incorporated somehow. But one thing I need to do, these Witcher books. I read the first one, The Last Wish, and did not care for it at all. I mean, with the promise of this series that he's a monster hunter, there was one monster at the beginning, and then the rest of the time we sat around in rich people's estates talking about the politics of killing monsters and no actual monster killing. And I've decided I'm probably not going to read the rest of the series. So my husband was kind of an influencer on that because he loves the show and he loves the game, but he is not enjoying these books even though he's committed to reading all of them, and I think he only has one left. But I told him if he wanted these for his collection, he could have them. So these, oh, I'm short, are going to be my first unhauls of the day, which is definitely freeing up a lot of space. Which is a shame though, because these are actually quite beautiful editions. Anyway, we are starting in, we're gonna do this shelf today, 4 shelf lengths. I have a few pulled out that came from the shelf above it because I got a couple of new books that fit in there. So we're gonna have to fit those in. So let's get started. I generally have not been coordinated enough to pull books out, talk about them, and remember to talk into the microphone all at the same time, but we're gonna see what we can do. Now, I'm not gonna talk about House of Night because I evaluated that I'm keeping them despite my better judgment from the last video. So the goal this time around is just to like fit all these in at the beginning, which I think we can do. I have the first 3 books of The School for Good and Evil. I got these at Book Outlet right after the Netflix film came out. I thought the Netflix film sounded like such a fun idea, and I ended up watching it. I don't usually watch things if there are books available. I like to read the books first, and liked it well enough that I would like to see what's in the books. There were a couple things in the movie that felt kind of brushed over and gone by too fast. So I thought, you know what? I bet you the book expands on that quite a bit more. So these are relatively new acquisitions, and I love school setting type of stuff, and I thought the premise was really fun, so I am going to be definitely saving those for a rainy day. A Psalm for the Wild Built. This is the second book in the Monk and Robot series. I liked Becky Chambers. I needed a little bit more of a plot, or at least some sort of through line in her second and third Wayward books. But for the most part, this is an author I really like, and I would definitely like to give this a try at some point. Okay, so Joelle Charbonneau. Has anybody heard of this author? Because I hadn't until I read her Testing series. The Testing series is a dystopian story about these kids having to go through these rigorous, sometimes deadly tests to survive.
You pick.
And we're talking like academic pen and paper, obstacle course kind of things. Like, I love competition of any sort. I love school stuff. I love testings. I love dystopian books. This one was phenomenal, especially that second book, one of my favorites that I've ever read. And so I immediately went out and curated as many things by this author as I could. And I have no idea if I'm going to like these or not, but I do know that if these are even half as good, and they all sound really cool, like, ooh, that's an awful sound. And I'm also a fan of young adult crime novels. So this is an author I'm really excited about. I have no idea which book to start with, but I'm definitely going to be venturing into her stuff sooner than later. So I'd like to hang on to those. I really don't know anything about these books, but I know her through a degree of separation. So like I'm friends with someone who took a writing course with her. And so it was really cool to have someone take the same writing courses with the same mentor that I did, actually make it big. Traditionally published books in bookstores, like so cool. So I bought these in solidarity, but I'm not actually sure if I'm going to be interested in the stories themselves. I didn't actually look into it. And the fact that these are 2 completely different printings, why? So this will be the first one that I need to do some... Oh, this one's Canadian. No, that one's also Canadian. What the heck? Anyway, I'm going to do some research on this to see if it's something I even think I might pick up at one point. This is book 1. This is book 2. And just a little bit of research. the publisher kind of name dropped a little bit. They're like, not since Kelly Armstrong's Bitten have we released an urban fantasy, and we're really excited to present this one from a new author, or something to that effect. It's like, cool. I love Bitten by Kelly Armstrong, and at least that is a really high standard to compare it against. So even if this one's only almost as good as that one, it would be worth reading. The thing that got me, there are a couple of reviewers, like just one or two, who I'm always on the same page with. One of them had a review that was like, wow, I haven't had this much fun in ages with an urban fantasy. What an awesome book. I'm listening. And then the rest of the reviews that I looked at, all of them mentioned how much fun this book was. And I could use a little bit of fun. So surprisingly, I actually thought I was going to get rid of these. You know how you kind of look at the shelves before you start filming and you're like, that one's toast. But what I will not accept is this atrocity of formatting. So I'm going to let go of the littler one, keep just the first book. Then if I end up liking it, I can curate the entire 3-book series, and yeah, should be fun. I'm always on the lookout for a new urban fantasy. I am running low on some of the more popular ones, and I've read so many of them that I would like to be the person you can turn to for new recommends, but I haven't been dabbling in the genre in a while. So we'll keep this one and we'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll do another urban fantasy challenge or something and read a whole bunch of first books. Yeah, because I need to start a new series. Keeping that one, putting this one up top for unhaul. Okay, next up we have the Spellwright series by Blake Carlton. If you're a longtime fan of this particular feature on my channel, you know I've read this first book already. Spellwright. Oh my gosh, it was so good. I'm gonna hold the microphone for a minute. We'll see if that gets in the way or if the audio is totally obnoxious when I go to edit it. I apologize if it is, but I can't keep living like this. If you are looking for a unique fantasy series with magic and academic settings, look no further. This first book, at least, was so much fun. Look, it's even got a cover quote by Robin Hobb. The author has dyslexia, and he makes his character slightly dyslexic, and the magic in this world is all about the reading the words correctly. And the most interesting aspect is, like, the spell doesn't just not work if you read it wrong, it works in different ways. And so there's a lot of fun mishap with magic. And also, the gargoyles. The gargoyles in this series are so much fun. They're magical manifestations, and I think they were my favorite part of the book. Now, I read this back when I was just starting a whole bunch of new things without having any time to commit to finishing them out, and I liked this one enough that I've marked it for reread, because I would like to reread the first book and then continue on immediately with the rest of them and just read the whole thing. So good! So this is a definite keep. Okay, now we get into the Foreigner series, which I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with. I read this first book several years ago, a couple months after my firstborn was born, and it might be a mood thing. It might be I was too tired and overworked and busy to really appreciate novels that were a little self-indulgent and took their sweet time for anything to happen. But this one pissed me off enough that I put it down with 50 pages to go. Now, this is something I think, in theory, I should really like. It's sci-fi, it has an abundance of aliens, it's a politically driven series. What made me so angry is that the main character cared more about where his missing mail parcels were than he did about any of the things going on in this world. And there were events that were happening, but they would happen outside of the text. So they would be like, oh yes, this is happening, but it wouldn't show you anything. Oh yes, this is happening. So you weren't in on any of the action. Not to mention it's a hard sell from the beginning, because the book starts over like 3 times before you finally get going. But I would like to give it another try. As you can see, I have been slowly curating a bunch of hardcovers, and I didn't pay too terribly much for these. But at some point I would like to give it another go and at least commit to reading through the first book and get into the second one and see if it's any better. I mean, the series is still going and it still has a strong fan base, so it must be doing something right, and I maybe just didn't give it long enough. And you know, just had a new baby, first child, I didn't have a lot of patience for anything. So we're gonna give that one another go. But for unhaul's sake, Since I've been picking up hardcovers, I still have these paperbacks here that I don't need because I have the hardcover versions. So we're gonna unhaul those. Although, oh man, here's unfortunately like where I am as far as off in the deep end when it comes to trying to figure out what to keep and what to let go. So obviously I'm a hardcover collector. I would like to keep the hardcovers, but if I'm actually going to pick this one up, lately I've been focusing on one book at a time, listening to an audiobook all day long, and then before bed I pick up the physical copy and read it. This first Foreigner book is in really decent condition. However, it's still used and it's still slightly grimy, and I really don't want to take it in bed with me. Anyone else like that? Do I have any other germaphobes out there who don't want to touch secondhand books? Like, I'm definitely not a library user, that's for sure. So my inclination is to maybe hang on to the paperback so that I have something to read, but then what I'll probably end up doing is maybe still get rid of those, but then download the ebook and do my tandem read with the ebook, probably. Book deciding is hard, but I can definitely get rid of those first three because I already have hardcover copies. We're just gonna go with it. Don't have precursor. I have a book here without a cover. Long story. If you want to know why, go back and watch some of my older Read, Burn, Hoard videos, because at this point I'm really tired of explaining it. Conspirator and Defender. So I'm gonna keep one copy of everything and call it a day, but then let go of those paperbacks. Fortress in the Eye of Time, also by C.J. Cherryh. I've been hanging on to this book for years, even though every time I see it on the shelves, I'm like, I'm not going to pick that up. When I've brought it up in past Read, Burn, Hoards, people come out of the woodworks to tell me that they really liked this book. And I'm over here like, I don't care. I really don't think I'm going to read it. If I'm going to pick up the C.J. Cherryh, I'm going to pick up Foreigner first. And depending on how that goes, I'll either never make my way to this one because that one's so long, or I'll put it down and never touch this author again. But just for the sake of, let me see if this one is available in audio copy. Okay, I looked it up. It is available in ebook, but not audiobook. This is book 1 of a 5-book series. I have seen subsequent books in this one available in hardcover. And I'm not much of a mass market paper book collector anyway, so I think for the sake of freeing up space on my shelf, I've bookmarked the ebook as something to possibly buy in the future. I'm gonna let this one go. It's hard being so brutal. I know I am letting go of perfectly good books, but I'm getting realistic with myself and what I think I might actually read, and this one is just, it's never gonna make the cut. I just know myself. And if it does, then I can kick myself and worry about finding secondhand copies later. Wouldn't be the first time. These ones, on the other hand, are books that I've been hanging on to for a while. The Sword, the Ring, and the Chalice by Deborah Chester. Mine don't have covers, which honestly means I should probably get rid of them. But then I've got this one called The Pearls, and then another one called Reign of Shadows that doesn't have a cover. It's got a dragon on it though. I am most interested in this one. A lot of times in the past, I think my interest in this one has made me just hang on to everything else arbitrarily. And I'm inclined to do that again because it's one that I would like to try. But the fact that these ones don't even have covers makes me think I definitely should look that one up to see if I even want to read it. All right, I'm gonna look them all up. I was tempted to take a shortcut and just keep them, but nope, we're gonna be thorough. By the way, it is an incredibly gloomy day here. I live in the desert. It only rains like once in a blue moon, and we haven't had rain in like over 60 days. Yeah, it's raining and gloomy today, and it was the one day I had to film. So bad lighting and all, we shall persist. So this is an instance where I think ignorance was bliss. Because now that I've looked into this series, which I don't think I had done too seriously before, I'm really conflicted. The one with the cover that I liked, The Pearl, ends up being a continuation duology or unfinished trilogy to Reign of Shadows, which is part of the Ruby Throne trilogy. Mine does not have a copy. This is the one I am most interested in. It does have ebook components, but no audiobook. It was the one that was the most compelling. Something about a ruler who sat on the Ruby Throne because he made a deal with darkness for immortality, but now it's time to pay. So I think his realm is going to pay on his behalf, essentially. Sounds interesting, right? The Pearl, from just a brief search, this woman's tears turn into pearls, she's stolen away, and some Stockholm Syndrome ensues. And even though I like the thought of it, I don't think I'm gonna pick that up. I would have to pick up this one first. And this one does have an audiobook component as well as an ebook. I'm just really tired of hanging on to things just for the sake of. I have so many amazing books in this library, over 1,000 books, and 10 shelves that I've evaluated so far of books that I think I would read before I pick this one up. So I think I'm going to let that one go. Now, this one I could keep as a placeholder because I am actually interested in reading it, but the fact that it doesn't have a cover, I think I'm ready to let that one go as well. But I have bookmarked that one as ebooks to consider, and I will likely pick it up at some point. I would like to read that one. Okay, so we get into The Sword. I'm actually more interested in reading The Pearl than I am about this one. 3.7 reviews, which is not horrible, but the books don't seem to get any stronger from there. So the people who actually stuck with it thought the last book was just about as good as the first one. And the biggest complaint was that it needed an editor because the plot was incredibly meandering and typical for the genre. Meaning, like, there's no interesting, unique elements to keep you glued. It's just like, it is what it is. So even though I've hung on to these for years thinking that I was really excited to one day pick them up, it's such a hard thing because these are only available in print format. There's not an electronic edition. So if I let these go, I'm pretty much saying goodbye to ever having a chance to read them because I'm not curating mass market paperbacks on the internet to read. And actually, with how limited my time is to physically read, would I ever pick this up? Given the poor ratings that I saw for it and the fact that it was mediocre and unedited, some things that I really don't like reading in books, I gotta be realistic. I don't see myself picking it up within the next 10 years, so I'm gonna let these go as well. Wow. Okay, I'm kind of glad I looked into that, but man, maybe I should keep my stripped copy of The Reign of Throne just so it represents on the shelf and I don't forget about it. Because if I let all of her books go, I will never revisit. Although, they've sat on my shelves for 20 years at this point, and I have yet to prioritize picking them up. It's always been like a passing fancy, like, oh, sure, yeah, those look cool. Maybe I'll get around to them eventually. I've never picked these up. So I think it makes sense to opt for space rather than having a placeholder. So yeah, letting them go. Okay, well, that's quite a bit of space for that shelf. Let's start pulling over from the next one. All right, Clockwork Princess. As you can see, I got this one on bargain. This is book 3 of the Infernal Devices series by Cassandra Clare, who brought you City of Bones, which I read the first 3 books, the trilogy, when there was only 3, and I thought the premise was dumb. There were things I liked about it, but it just wasn't robust enough for me. I didn't click with the writing. The first book in this series, which I did read, I actually liked it. It was Clockwork Angel. It was much better than anything else I had read by her, and I was interested enough that I wanted to continue. So now I've just got like this placeholder on my shelf for the 3rd book. I don't even own the 2nd one, but it's definitely one I would have to go back and reread. But I liked it enough that I'm not quite willing to part with my copy of this yet. I've got to wait to see if it's something that I'll dive into. Really hard to say, but you never know. I have a coverless copy of The Songs of Distant Earth by Arthur C. Clarke. Classic sci-fi, I would like to get into it. I definitely do not need a coverless copy of this book. An adjunct teacher at my local university was doing a sci-fi literature course, and someone brought in a list of all the books that he was requiring for his class when I was a bookseller, and I made note of what a literary science fiction teacher would teach, and brought this one home because of that. So that was so long ago, and I have no inkling to read this, and if I do, I don't even care if it's available digitally. I just don't think I'm going to pick that up anytime soon. All of you classic sci-fi people, is that one good? Is it worth putting on my list somewhere else? Because I'm not opposed to reading it, I just don't think I need one on my shelves. As it happens, yesterday, for a different project, I ended up doing research on this book. Now, this is an ARC that I got, and I don't love the face, but I love the shiny purple. Like, it's been a cover, the aesthetic of the cover has been appealing to me. And I do love technological YA, like The Uglies comes to mind, but there are a couple other fun ones where the main character is either a clone or an engineered human, if you will. But the problem I have with this one is that it's book one of a trilogy, and this came out so many years ago, 2012, and there is yet to be any news on a third book, and the author has written a ton of books after this. So if it's not good enough for her even to want to circle back and tell more of, or where a publisher wouldn't be like, hey, get us a third book, let's wrap this up, I don't want to invest any time into it. So I am going to let this one go as well. I have books 2 and 3 in the Tales of Magic series by Chris Colfer, who I really like. I read the first one last year, and it was an absolute delight. This is a series I would like to get back to within the next year or so. My favorite thing about it is the entire packaging. Like, first of all, the naked hardbacks have this beautiful work on them. There are illustrations unique to each chapter in front of each chapter, if that makes sense. Kind of like Harry Potter, like so. Now, the other thing I will say is the message was a bit heavy-handed, but it happens to be a message that I agree with, so I'm willing to continue on. But I thought the first book was an absolute delight. I'm glad I own these, and I cannot wait to continue on at some point. Just have to finish a bunch of other things. Oh, that's creepy. Okay, this is the... Geez. I do not like that, Sam I Am. I've never actually looked at these covers. This is the Artemis Fowl series by Eoin Colfer. And I got them in a box set from the book outlet, the entire series, based solely on the idea that I sold so many of these when I was a bookseller that they have to be good. But the thing is I remember picking up the first book and tried to read it to my brother like 20 years ago, and we had a hard time understanding what the book was about or what it was trying to say. It was a very clunky introduction, and we ended up putting it down. So I think I only paid about $20 for this set, and I would at least like to try the first book again to see where it goes. That is definitely something I should do sooner than later because I have so many books on here, but the fact that they sold so many copies is what leads me to the belief that it might be good. But then again, a lot of things sold a lot of copies that I don't actually like. If I had just one book or if it were coverless, it would be gone, but the fact that I have the whole series, I'm gonna hang on to it for the time being. As we're at the end of this particular shelf, let's take a break and talk about Alien Clay. I am more than a third of the way through this book, and it's got me. I am really interested to see what's going on. It's got a very unconventional story so far. Well, maybe the story itself isn't the unconventional part, but how the information is being revealed to the reader is a bit unique, which I like. I'm already a big fan of xenobiology and sci-fi books. There could be more of that in this one for me, but that's not really the main point of the plot. It's more of a mystery, if you will, and perhaps a bit of a social commentary. Of all the Tchaikovskys I've picked up, this is definitely starting out at least in the upper half. This came out about the same time that Service Model did, and so far I'm liking it a lot more than that one. There's a lot going on. I'm at the point where I'm actively seeking out the book throughout the day just for like one more chapter. That compulsive readability is very exciting, and we'll see where it goes. Well, starting out shelf 3, we've made a lot of progress so far. It's almost empty. I have book 2 and 3 in the Matched series by Ali Condi. I think I read the first book twice with the intent to continue, but never did. I'm told they're not that great, but I love these kind of dystopians generally, and I would like to have read it. I know it won't take me that much time. These are also, I think they're signed. Yep, signed and personalized because the author is somewhat local. And even though I think it'll be one of my last priorities, I'm not ready to give up on that series yet. Man, it is so dark today. Okay, Princess at Sea by Dawn Cook. I unhauled this once and then saved it. I liked the first book, but I had some problems with it, and I couldn't see myself reading the second one anytime soon. But it's one of those books that the longer I sat on it, the more I was like, you know, I really am interested in seeing where it goes. And Dawn Cook is a pen name for Kim Harrison, who I love. Not to mention, she wrote the Truth series as Dawn Cook, and it's still one of my all-time favorites. So I'm hanging on to that for the sake of, but I don't think I'm going to get into it anytime soon. Glenn Cook, author of The Black Company, which is a series I would like to get into eventually. This is the start to a new series. I don't know if it's related to Black Company at all, but The Instrumentalities of the Night. And I love the cover art, and it is an author I was looking to try at some point. So let me do some research on this. I don't even know if the trilogy is complete or how it ties in. So let me look at that. This is book 1 of 4. And the general consensus that I got is that if you love Black Company, you'd probably pick this one up because you're a fan of the author. But if you want something like Black Company, this will not deliver. Some people said it read more like a take on a medieval history book, so not the same tone that he used to tell Black Company at all. But see, I'm interested, highly interested in Black Company. Therefore, I would be reading that 10-book series first before I would even think to dive into more here. And this was a cover buy. It was also relatively inexpensive, probably only a $5 purchase. I don't see myself picking it up before Black Company. It would actually do me good to get rid of it so that I would have more room to bring in some Black Company books. Who knows, maybe someone will do a special edition of them or something. In any case, I think I'm okay letting this one go as well. Surprisingly, like, this is what happened last time. I looked at the shelves beforehand and I knew a couple of instances, like, yes, I'm definitely getting rid of those. But then these ones that were kind of in the middle, I didn't really know a lot about them. I figured I'd keep most of them, but as it turns out, I'd rather have the space. And let's just talk for a minute about consumerism and the fact that a lot of these books have accumulated because I was at a point in my life where anything and everything that I could get my hands on, I was bringing home that looked remotely interesting. The grabbing and hoarding aspect was my favorite part about being a book owner. In fact, the more books that I had, the more pride I felt in my collection. And then you get a little bit older and then you realize you're not going to have time to read all of these things. So why keep burying yourself further and dragging these titles along for years that you probably won't touch for another 20 years if they sat there? So while I hate the fact that I am unhauling a ton of books that I spent really good money on, it's coming with a shift on the other side about being incredibly intentional about everything that I'm choosing to bring home now. If it's not a heck yes, it's a no. And I'm keeping a lot of books on here that are just kind of like, I'm not so sure. But it's like I'm not so sure on the positive side, and I'm letting go of all the not so sure on the negative side. But eventually I'd like to be to a point where every single unread book on my shelves is one I'm excited to read. If I go through and do a random draw, I want to be happy about anything that gets picked. And right now I would say there's like 40% of the books still on my shelves, or at least the ones I haven't gone through yet, that if it got picked, I'd be like, okay, fine, I'll read it. Life's too short. Back to the shelf. This was a relatively recent purchase. I don't know much about it. It's a duology. It's young adult. And honestly, I really don't want to look it up. I feel like I want to go into this one blind and try it. And it hasn't been in my collection long enough that I'm too concerned about it. I don't think I would have brought it home had I not read a little bit about what it was about and decided I want to read it. A cover like that is likely to get me to pick it up sooner than later anyway. 5 Broken Blades by Maya Cornland. I managed to restrain myself from buying that beautiful blue Waterstones edition and instead bought this secondhand on Pango for like $10. It's a book of the month edition. I am so curious on whether this book is actually as good as they're making it sound it is, because why would it get so many special editions and all of this attention if it wasn't that good, or if it's just marketing dollars serving this really well. The jury is still out, but hopefully, seeing as there's a second book already in publication, I'll read it and let you know. I'm curious if anybody has read it, what they thought of it. Is it just like 3-star mediocre? Okay, this is the Pelennor series, starting with the naming, by Alison Croghan. Ow, I don't know why I'm sitting down. I don't have to be by my camera. The covers leave a little bit to be desired, but the spines are nice. I bought this based on customer recommendation. I used to ask people what their favorite reads were, and I heard this from at least 2 different people over the course of the year. So I picked it up. No idea what it's about, but it is one that caught my attention enough and that came on such good recommendation that I feel like I'm safe keeping that. We're at the end of the shelf. Go us. We have a dragon series. Dragon Temple Saga, Touched by Venom is the first book. And 100% this is a concept and a cover buy for me. It looks so good. My brother, who's not much of a reader, started the first book and didn't get very far into it. He said it was kind of boring, but grain of salt. This is one that I would be positive on starting regardless if there were bad reviews on Goodreads, because I'm always interested in seeing if someone's got a unique twist on dragons or how they present them. So I will probably give this one a try. It also helps its case that I have all of the books with covers. So we're going to hang on to that one for now because I'm overall positive thoughts on trying it. Because, I mean, Goodreads is helpful to a degree, but I know that even if I looked up my very favorite book, there would probably be some negative reviews on it that if I were a new reader to it, these don't have covers, I probably wouldn't pick it up based on the merits of the Goodreads reviews, if that makes sense. Okay. I have coverless copies of Forgotten Realms books, Daughter of the Drow, part of the Starlight Shadows series by Elaine Cunningham. I am almost positive that I can get these digitally. We are well beyond the days where physical copy is the only way to read a book, so I no longer need to hang on to these, but let me just do a quick search to make sure they're available. Okay, confirming all three of these are available via audiobook. Of all the things that R.A. Salvatore created with Drizzt, the Drow are my favorite. I love the Drow politics. So that's why I've hung on to these for so long, but I no longer need physical representations on my shelves. I will be picking up the audiobook if and when I ever get around to that. But see, the thing is I'm probably not even going to pick up anything kind of secondary to the main Drizzt series until I finish Drizzt. And as we have established lately in some of my content, I'm having a really hard time even with the Drizzt books. Maybe when I can catch up with the 15 books that I am behind on that, I can look into reading something tangent. But right now, like, I don't see myself picking those up within the next 5 years, maybe longer. This is called The Murder Complex. I think it's a standalone. It was sent to me in a box of other books I want to give away of some sort, and it was like a ARC giveaway. I wasn't really interested in this one at the time, but I hung on to it. I have found with the Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes that I really like young adult crime novels because I'm too squeamish to handle the adult stuff, and I really don't like real world crime. So this like fluffy YA version has the element of mystery and suspense, but without anything that makes me feel yucky. So let me look up and see if I think I might even touch this one ever. I was thinking for sure I was going to get rid of this one, but it's dystopian. It's futuristic dystopia where, quote, the murder rate is greater than the birth rate. And so it follows a young character who's trained to kill. Okay, cool. I love stuff like that. Psychopath. This looks great. It's got a prequel story, this one, and then a second book. I don't know if that wraps it up, if it's just a duology or not, but yeah, it's not a true crime book. It's a futuristic dystopian book. I am all for that. So I've never heard anything on this one. Maybe this would be a fun one to pick up on a whim because it's so different than the normal things that I read. So keeping. Cool. I love it when I go through these shelves and I find something new to be excited about that has just been sitting there for years, because I've never looked anything up on this. Okay, then I have the first two books in the Turn of Light series by Julie Chernita. Those of you who know how anal I am about format, this is a book club edition. It's too small. And this is a trade paperback edition that not hardcover, doesn't match, but it's signed, so what am I supposed to do? And there's also a third book out, which I imagine if I ordered right now, would be a standardized hardcover. This is one of my all-time favorite science fiction writers. She was a biologist before she was a writer, and that deep knowledge finds its way into her books in the most amazing ways. I love her creature creation. She is trying her hand here at fantasy, and I am all for it. I cannot wait to give it a try. This is one of those that I've been waiting for a rainy day to read because it's an author I love, and when I get around to reading it, if I like it, I'm definitely picking up different editions. But she also has a newer one out called The Gossamer Mage, which kind of gives me academic vibes, but I don't know much about it. Because I know I like the author, I don't really look up what the books are about. I go in kind of blind, but I'm there for that. I am so excited. So I will be picking those out. This is the latest in her Web Shifters series. Her initial trilogy, starting with The Beholder's Eye, is one of my all-time favorites. And then years and years later, she finally continued the story. I really like the cover on that one. I hate whatever is happening here. But I read, ooh, bad noise, sorry. I read this one and half of this one, and then was so busy that I got held up and was unable to finish them. So I would like to go back and reread it. These aliens are essentially taking up residence on this planet where they run kind of a public library, but to get access, you have to bring some sort of lore from your world, some sort of knowledge to add to the collection, and that's what buys your way in. And it's just a bunch of really fun things that happens within that. But I would not recommend reading this unless you've read the Web Shifters trilogy, starting with Beholder's Eye, because this is like a spoilers continuation to how that one ends. But I love it so much. I love this author. So I will be getting back to that at some point. To Each This World, I believe it's a standalone sci-fi, one of her newer ones. I have it on good authority that one's really good. I'm not sure about this one. So this is a short story collection, Tales from Plexus. I remember she asked for stories for people to contribute to her collection, and she was going to give unknown writers a shot, fans of the books and the series, to like make it into this book here. And I'm sure she's got like high caliber other writers in the mix as well. But it's a great variety. But the thing is I am so done with that clan series. I finished the whole 9-book thing ages ago. And I don't know that I care about short stories from this world because I'm so far away from it. That was my least favorite one of hers, even though it was good. So I don't think I'm ever going to reread it, but it could be a fun compilation. She's got great dry humor, which is one of my favorite things. So that one I'm on the fence about. I'm going to keep it for now just because she's a favorite, but I am not sure. And then we have a coverless copy of collection of short stories edited by Chernita. This one's called Misspelled. I will never pick this up. Like, it's, I mean, I don't even know if there's a story in here by her. It's got a story by Kristen Britton of the Green Rider series, and Jim Hines, who wrote the Gremlin story. I can't remember what they were. They look like Smurfs, and that's it. So, authors I've never read, if they're that great, I bet you I could find digital copies of them. I'm letting that one go. My friends, we have cleared up almost an entire shelf, which is amazing. And look at all of the books leaving this collection today. But the thing is, it'll mess everything up if I just leave it blank. So we got to keep going until I fill this shelf up, and then that way I can shift everything and we can start fresh next month. So let me bring up the next books from the shelf below, and we'll go through until this one's completely stuffed. This is a lot of work. I'm tired. Okay, from the shelf below, In the Company of Others by Julie Chernita. My copy does not have a cover, but it's one done by Luis Royo, which I always love. I am interested in reading this one. I will eventually get a better copy, but because I'm trying not to buy random things that I haven't actually read yet, I'm going to leave this one on here, and this is going to be absolutely my reading copy. And we're keeping that. Crucible of Shadows and Play of Shadows by Sebastian de Castell. If I'm not mistaken, in the same realm as The Greatcoats, which I loved. Very hit and miss at the beginning, but by the end of it, my socks were knocked off. I really loved how that story progressed. Had some awesome moments. So I'm committed to reading more by the author, but I have so many things going on right now that I'm just waiting until more books are out in the series or something. I don't know. I just know I don't have time to start it today. Plus, I don't know. Did you see all that dust fly? There's something to be said about finishing a series and thinking it done and being just really happy with the fact that it's done. The fact that more books come out that are connected kind of drives me a little crazy. Like, how am I supposed to be a completionist? Oh. The 13th Reality published by Shadow Mountain, one of my favorite publishers just because they always have fun stuff. James Dashner, did he write The Maze Runner? Possibly the Maze Runner author, but I could be nuts. Anyway, I love these little hardback editions. Shadow Mountain hasn't let me down yet. They're the ones that brought me Fablehaven and a couple of other really fun ones. So keeping those. I bought these on a whim from my patron Mike. And I have no idea what they're about or if it's something that I would even want to read. This one's got a cover quote from Sarah J. Maas. This one from Alexandra Bracken. I actually like Alexandra Bracken, at least her Darkest Minds book. Okay, I need to look this one up because I think this was just an impulse buy that I could have done without. I have a tendency to collect popular series that I'm even mildly interested in, especially if I can get them in hardcover, just on whims. Right? Like if I see a hardcover for something that's kind of popular, I'm like, oh, snag that because eventually you might really like it. The reviews are so hard to tell on Goodreads. Series like these have the tendency to garner a lot of fanatics, and then people hear the hype and of course they're disappointed when they come pick it up after the fact. I'm really not sure yet. This one could possibly, like, I think I wouldn't miss it if I let it go, but I'm also not sure. I'm on the fence. So for the time being, I think I'm going to hang on to it. And if I get back to it next time we get to this shelf on the next round and haven't even had an inkling to pick it up, I'm going to let it go. In fact, I might even let it go later, but I don't want to hold up progress while I'm waffling. So we're going to put it on the bubble, but I don't see myself reading this one. I know, I probably shouldn't hang on to things that I really can't see myself reading anytime soon. So maybe you can help me. Like, I imagine most of the people watching these videos are people who like the type of books that I like. Is Truth Witch good? Should I pick it up? Maybe you can help me decide. I've got The Replaced, which is the second book in the Taking series. I think I got this one on bargain and I haven't made a chance to purchase the first one yet. And then this one's called The Pledge. I think it's slightly dystopian. This one's aliens, this one's slightly dystopian. I love her Body Finder series, at least what I've read so far. I've read the first book, absolutely solid, and I love the author. I met her at an event, so I have committed to reading anything she has published. I'm just waiting for a great rainy day that's not this rainy day to binge everything she has because I'm absolutely delighted by her writing. The tropes that usually bother me in YA are handled so well that they don't feel like tropes. That's a huge endorsement. Speaking of authors I'm wildly interested in, author of the Chemical Garden trilogy, which was superb, Lauren DeStefano. This is appearing to be a weird middle grade book, but I like the author so much and she's got such cool twist on things that I want to give that one a try. Absolutely no idea what it's about. And then she has another dystopian series. This is books 2 and 3. I read book 1 and struggled with it. None of the interesting things happened on the page. It was all like, oh, this is what's happening on the side. Kind of like with Foreigner. So your most interesting actions in your story your main character should be involved somehow. So that's what kind of threw me off. I also read it when I had absolutely no intention of continuing on right away. The first book was called The Perfect Ruin. I need to reread it to continue the series, but I like the author enough that I would like to do that at some point. I believe this is a duology, but don't quote me on that. The Glass Spare, this is the first book. For all the same reasons, I would like to continue on with her at some point. Okay, and then last but not least, I have all of these Pixie Hollow books, which I am no longer a youth, but oh my gosh, I love these books so much. I have a few coverless copies here. But these are some of the most beautiful books that I've ever come across. Not to mention full color illustrations, artwork before each chapter, full page illustrations. Like, these are so, so beautiful. And half the fun of reading them is just coming to the illustrations every couple of pages or so. And I have read like 8 to 12 of them, and these are the ones I haven't gotten around to yet. So good. So I love the story. These are based on a book by Gail Levine, which is beautiful in its own right, but a slightly different illustration style. And from that, these were shelved in the chapter book section, which it's one step below middle grade, but in my opinion, they're every bit as entertaining as a middle grade book. And I really love them. So we're keeping these. They won't all fit on this shelf up here, but that's fine. We'll have some keepers on the next shelf down below. And oh my gosh, I think we're done. These are all the books that we're keeping. Not gonna lie, there's not a ton of books that I would be excited to drop everything and read on this one, but let's evaluate that really quick. Like, because I'm just not sure what I'm gonna get. I would love to try these, but I'm not convinced that they're gonna be 5 stars. This jar to me represents 5-star predictions. Things that I cannot wait to pick up. I feel like, oddly, I would love to read that one. Turn of Light, for sure. And my Disney fairy books, but I don't want to read those too fast. Is that funny? I will be including this one. So I'm out of little pink papers, but I'll bring some home. And I'm going to leave that next to it so that I can remember to add it to it. I think that's the only really high priority from these shelves. And that leaves me almost an entire shelf to work with, which means I'm definitely going to be able to get rid of one of these extra hanging on shelves. And then panning up here, I've got enough space up there to add even more. This is great. And the final count, I am letting go of 24 books today. 17 of which were from the shelves we evaluated. More than I thought there'd be, and I honestly don't think I'm gonna miss any of these physical copies. I lied, I pulled a pink paper off of one of the other books as I was going through, so yay! Accounted for. Eventually, we will be doing random draw from this when I get through my first pass. Can't wait. Well, I'm beat. That was a lot of work. It is actually March. I know I do a lot of weird filming timelines or whatever, but my other sweaters are dirty and this one's really warm, so leave me alone yet again. I wanted to wrap up final thoughts on Alien Clay. Okay, so a mixed bag on this one for me. Overall, a 4-star reading, a really fun one, really similar to Cage of Souls, but I think I liked Cage of Souls slightly better. Cage of Souls kind of delivered on all of the promises that were made, if you will. This one set things up really well for a lot of fun, how do I put it? Scheming, if you will. Made me believe there was a plot in play from the very beginning. The author did a few really unconventional storytelling things where he broke the fourth wall. When he did that, it made me immediately suspicious that I was missing out on a lot of things that were actually going on behind the scenes. So in my mind, things were a lot more complex than they actually were. I was like, oh, maybe he's not telling us about this. Oh, maybe that plan went wrong, but there was an underlying plan, blah, blah. I got really into it. And then it ended up being a lot more simple than I thought it would be. That's okay. It was still a good story. And the back half of the story, in my mind, kind of had not as much to do with the front half, but it was more of an exploration of this world, which is kind of why I picked up the book to begin with. And that was really satisfying. I liked all of the creature creation, the flora and fauna. He had a great concept. If you do the audio book, there's an author interview at the end where he explains. I don't want to give it away because I feel like it kind of wrecks the punchline of the book. Passable characters, great alien flora and fauna, and just missing, I don't know, just missing one or two things to make it a truly standout novel. Now, compared to other sci-fi I've read, one of the stronger. I liked it. Compared to other Tchaikovskys, solid 4-star. So take it with a grain of salt. Now, is this going to make anybody cringe? Because I was like, I cannot decide which book to keep. So I have the beautiful yellow one, but then I also have the broken binding edition with the sprayed edges. And so I'm like, well, I have 2 copies. So I have taken my yellow dust jacket and put it over the red one. And that way I still get to keep my beautiful broken binding edition with the naked hardcover, but then I can look at a pretty yellow one on my shelves. I would probably not be willing to do this for many other authors, but I have spent so much time and energy collecting hardcover Tchaikovsky books that it's almost worth it to me to be weird with it. Like, for example, you'll see on these shelves the Shadow of the Apt hardcovers I've been buying from the broken binding. Those ain't cheap. And then I've got the Children of Time series. That first book, easily still one of my all-time favorite books. It was so freaking good, and I managed to find it in hardcover back when they were a lot harder to find. And then Guns of Dawn, oh my gosh, I finally found a copy of Guns of Dawn, and it's doodled and signed, which is so freaking cool. And then a couple of newer ones in my Cage of Souls, which I've not seen many hardcovers floating around there. I didn't even know they existed for that. And then I just have a few more spread throughout the collection of series that I haven't read yet, like Final Architecture and Echoes of the Fall. So of all the authors that I've been reading over the last couple of years, I figure like I can indulge myself a little bit with a Tchaikovsky. Not that I haven't already. And like this feels like such a luxury. Oh my gosh, because I basically ruined this copy. If anybody wants a copy of Alien Clay signed, without a dust jacket, but I've been on Pango for a while now selling books, and people seem to have absolutely no problem discarding the dust jacket and then later trying to sell their books without them. So maybe I'll put it up there with a discount and see if anybody wants like just the book without the dust jacket. You never know, there might be someone, because otherwise I'm just eating this very expensive book that I picked up that I probably shouldn't have. No, definitely shouldn't have. Like, why do that to myself? I already had a perfectly good copy, but it was one of those late night decisions where I'm like, oh yes, I wanted a yellow one. I'll sell my broken binding edition and keep the yellow one. It'll be a wash in expenses, but I forgot about the sprayed edges. So I think this is what I'm doing. It seems like such a weird thing, but one way or the other, I'm unhauling another book. If it doesn't sell, I'll probably eventually put the cover back on it, but you never know. There are all sorts of random people on there. That brings my total books unhauled this episode to 25, which, doing the math, brings my outstanding unread series in my collection down to 1,145 books. That is awesome. I'm not saying it's going to go this far, but let's say I unhaul like 20 books to 25 books from every row that I do. Theoretically, I'll unhaul over 500 books out of this collection by the time I get to the end of it. I don't think it's going to go that far, and I'm not taking into account the fact that I stole from the shelf below, like almost an entire shelf's worth of things, so I don't know that I have that factors in, all right? I no longer think it's going to be a big ask to get under 1,000 books by the end of the year, provided that I keep a handle on my buying and that I continue to prioritize reading books from the collection. And I've done pretty good. I feel I've done a lot of broken binding purchasing, but those are so expensive that I can only swing one every couple weeks to a month or so. And a lot of the books, I'm not counting the ones that I purchased until they actually show up, and a lot of my hog wild spending at the end of last year is now starting to trickle in. For example, I just got my Malazan books and they are so pretty, but I've read those already, so they don't count against me. But yeah, things have been slowly starting to make their way into my collection again. But the difference is everything I'm picking out for myself is something I would be willing to drop everything and read immediately. And I've been mostly focusing on just finding nice editions of books that I've already read. They've gone through the vetting process. I know I want them on my shelves, and I happen to come across something that's affordable. So, doing well. Anyway, thank you so much for those of you who go along on this journey with me. I've had a couple people comment that it's one of those like addictive, decluttering type of can't help yourself but watch videos, and that's exactly the type of stuff that I love. So I'm glad that it's resonating. So please let me know if you're doing a similar sort of declutter to your own collection, trying to simplify. How is it going? Thank you so much for watching. Link to my Patreon is in the description, and I will catch you next month for episode 5. Bye.